I'm in the building with my man, Mr. Brooks Austin. You can find him at Brooks Austin BA. Go on YouTube, the Film Guy Network. This man's breaking down film like you one of the best in the business doing it. Man that knows about calf sizes, quickness, quick twitch muscles, and everything else. And he reps the South. Brooks, man, thanks for coming on, man.
Man, I love how you take off-the-record conversations about objectifying male bodies, and you bring them right into the introduction right here. Yeah, I tend to do that. As an evaluator of football, I tend to objectify the male body every once in a while. Hey, calf size is important. Calf location important. How high up on them calves is that muscle definition? All that is important. Yeah. I'll be looking at dudes. That's what I do. I'm a film guy. That's what I do.
Hey, one of the funniest things is like when you're at the combine and you watch the coaches. Now, I've been up there at the meat market, but when you're sitting in the stands, when you're sitting in the room when they're doing height and weights, it's kind of creepy because the coaches are in there like, look at him. Look at him. You're just like, settle down, bro.
I mean, I had one of these moments today, George, where I'm breaking down Alabama quarterback tape, and I get to the tight cut immediately of Austin Mack, and I'm like, hey, give me a second here, but that's a good-looking dude. I mean, he's 6'6". Look how thick his thighs are. And I'm like, all right, I got to stop. Let's move on. Let's watch the ball.
I saw Austin Mack.
I mean, it's real. It's a height weight sports, like height weight speed sport. So, like, how big you are, where your mass is located, how you move, like, all those things are really, really important as much as we joke about it. Like, the greatest coaches of all time on the defensive end, like defensive side of the football, when they look at defensive linemen, they watch them from the rear. They're trying to see how wide that human is.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, he's got a wide ass.
They got a wide ass.
Yeah, you can put a little weight on that thing.
Yeah.
But now I want to go on to the SEC. Because we got to talk about, so we've talked about on the show the Big Ten's biggest fears of this year. But we got the SEC, each team, their biggest fear of the year. I'll let you go first because this is the conference that like the back of your head. You live amongst these people. I've lived amongst these people as well. So when they say it matters more, I 100% agree with that. It does matter more to people in the South. I was born in Memphis, lived there for a long time, lived in Florida, so I get it. Lived amongst all the Florida Gators on my team. But we will start with the Alabama Crimson Tide. What do you believe their biggest fear, like deep down inside their soul, that they don't want to admit that they are afraid of this season?
That the offensive line didn't get rebuilt like they hope it did. They have 7 new offensive linemen, I believe it is. Most of them, I think 3 transferred in from SEC schools. So that would be a primary concern. Like I think I just got done watching both quarterbacks. I think both quarterbacks are uber talented. I think they'll be fine at the quarterback position. Weaponry wise, like I'm a big Wrighster Brooks fan. Like I think he's an elite weaponry guy at the slot position. We'll see what they ultimately get out of Noah Rogers, the transfer from NC State. Derek Meadows, a former 5-star wide receiver. Can he develop out there on the edge? And obviously everybody knows and is well aware of Ryan Williams and whether or not he will return to kind of that freshman lore after a down year of sophomore year. But none of that matters if they can't block people. It's bad. It's so not like people say Alabama standards. It's not even SEC standards. It's not even good SEC standards the last couple of years at the offensive line position. Their damn quarterback played last year with back spasms and cracked ribs to finish the season. That's what it was. So their biggest fear is offensive line. Defensively, they'll be great. It'll be really, really hard to move the football against Alabama this year.
I totally agree with you about the O-line because watching Alabama not be able to run the ball, rush for like 1,300 yards on the whole season, you were like, what? Yuck. And so
you can't take their leading rusher the last 2 years and have him combine for 1,000 total yards.
That's sad. I believe their biggest fear is that Kalen DeBoer is a very good coach. He's just not an SEC coach. And that it's going to either that or it's going to take him longer to figure out the dynamics of winning in the SEC at the level that Alabama believes. Because with the way college football is trending, and I know Alabama fans don't want to hear it, Brooks, but they're not a super money school. So
Mm.
they're more trending out of, from one of the top programs. They feel like that they're headed to be a top 15 program instead of a top 5 program.
I mean, they'll be preseason ranked somewhere around 12 to 15 for the first time in a long time. So, I mean, I do think they need to adjust their standards from an expectation standpoint of, like, used to, you had a talented roster that felt like you could roll everybody, and if you didn't, it was a lack of coaching. Well, now, dude, you're going to war every single day where the point spreads are no longer Bama minus 17.5. Now they're Bama minus 4.5. And that's still because they're Bama. And they're still really talented, by the way. Like, if you look at what they did in 2026 recruiting-wise, I know that's what I always look at for how much money you have available. Are you signing blue-chip prospects in high school? Because that costs money nowadays. They still do that. They're still recruiting really, really well. So they have some type of resources, but I'm with you. They're not one of these $40.5 million rosters, $45 million rosters. They're not.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the Arkansas Razorbacks. New head coach. I believe Arkansas's biggest fear is that they're going to have to apologize to Ryan Silverfield. That the way that they treated him and when he took that job coming over from Memphis, they're like, oh, fine. I guess we'll take him. We didn't get Alex Golesh. We didn't get Rhett Lashley. We didn't get anybody we actually wanted. But come on, whatever. And he goes out and he does a good job. And then they're going to have to apologize because then he's going to say, I know we got this Tyson food money, but y'all don't really love me like that. So if Kalen DeBoer gets fired at Alabama or Florida State opens after this year or something, I might go where I'm actually wanted.
You're higher on the Silverfield stock than I am. Silverfield had the best mid-major job in the world. I don't think people know that. Like, you made a joke about Tyson food money, buddy. He just came from FedEx money down there in Memphis. Like, he had more money in the American Conference than maybe the bottom half of that conference combined. Like, if I took the bottom 6 teams in the American and put their roster value and combined them, they probably don't equate what Memphis spent last year on that 3-loss football team. So I'm not as big on the Silverfield situation as most people are, at least going in now. The early results have been really, really good. I mean, I think he flipped 7 in-state recruits the day he had his introductory press conference. He doing something right.
Yes.
Now, so there's going to be some juice there. I mean, they're not going to be a 2-win football team this year, I don't believe. I didn't think they should have been last year. But here's my biggest fear as the SEC homer that you labeled me to open. And there is some of that.
I didn't call you a homer. I just said that you were a man who knows the SEC.
Hey, George, I'm honest. I'm a little bit of an SEC hack. I am.
Okay.
Here was my biggest like, when Bob Chesney looked at the Arkansas job and was like, you know what? I think I'd rather go to take that second best job in LA. That to me was like, the 13th best job in the SEC for my money is not as good as the 15th best job in the Big Ten. I need to start changing my tone.
You think UCLA is the
I'm
fifth?
giving, buddy, I'm giving where they've been the last 10, 15 years. That's what they have been. The last 10 or 15 years, UCLA has been a non-competitive football program, even when they had a decent football coach in Chip Kelly. In my mind, that's how I view it. This has been changed, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
When Bob Chesney looks at both of those jobs, I would assume got calls from both of those jobs and was like, I ain't going to Little Rock. Hell no. Like that to me was eye-opening. That was like, oh, maybe all of this stuff I've been thinking about these jobs is totally different now. And to me, it is. I'm changing how I look at these bottom-end elite teams in these conferences.
Dude, UCLA is in Los Angeles. The weather's better.
You ain't got to sell me on Los Angeles. You got to sell me on like the ability to win at UCLA.
Yes,
you got to sell me on that.
I do believe. So in meeting Bob Chesney, right? So I've had a chance to spend a little bit of time with him. We will be interviewing him soon, but had a chance to spend a little bit of time with him. He's very charismatic. He's very confident and believes in what he's doing. So
He
I
should.
believe that there will be a natural uptick for them. And from everything that I'm hearing, that the resources are that they are unlocking significantly more resources there. It's the most applied to university in the world that people are now like, hey, yo, you if you want to get in, hey man, you got to kick down some dollars. So
Yeah.
so it's just what it is, man. And so I believe that he's going to be able to have some success. But back to Arkansas though, I don't look at Arkansas as a place that you can win a national championship at, even
Oh yeah.
though even though Indiana just showed me that it can be done anywhere at the most losingest program ever. But I also look at Arkansas and I'm like, but that Tyson food money, if that Tyson food money is kicking down,
That
it's a
Tyson food money
possibility.
has been there. That Tyson food money has been there. They put the logo on the field 2.5 years ago, I think. So it's been there. They also have an athletic director, George, that has been very open about the fact that baseball and basketball matter more there because they actually, these are his words. I'm paraphrasing him. They actually have a chance to win in those sports. They actually have a chance to win in basketball and in baseball. And so they spin there. Look at their basketball and baseball rosters. They
Yes.
are at the top end of the SEC. They're not in football. So
And
maybe
Coach
Silverfield changes all that.
Coach
Maybe
Cal is
Indiana
taking up
has
a good
changed all
portion
that.
uh
No,
of that
no doubt. No doubt.
rev share money.
Yeah. But I think we spent way too much time on Arkansas, to be honest with
Yes,
you. No
I,
offense,
I
Razorbacks.
agree with
No
you.
offense. No offense.
Nobody's ever spent
No
this much time on Arkansas.
none.
All right, next up, the Alex Golesh led Auburn
Mm.
Tigers. What is your biggest fear, or what is Auburn's biggest fear for this year?
Their wide choice team number 3. That would be my biggest fear. I'm not ranking them number 3. I'm saying they're the third to enter the conference. That like when Alex Golesh was at Tennessee in 2022, and they were the first one in this conference to really bring this here and do this.
Yeah,
Everybody was kind of like, whoa, hey, whoa, we got to change everything about prep when we prepare for Tennessee. Well, that was 2022. This is 2026. And Tennessee has been around and Tennessee has been successful, almost too successful to the point where they've remorphed their whole offense. If you watch Tennessee now, they're not really a wide choice team. They have wide choice principles, but they're not living outside the numbers for 85 snaps a game. In fact, they bunched far more than any football team labeled wide choice I've ever seen.
yeah,
So they've had to adapt because I think the league defensively has adapted. Mississippi State under Jeff Levy is doing this or attempting to do this. Hasn't been uber successful. If you remember Jackson Arnold's debacle year at Oklahoma, they were trying to wide choice out there. It didn't really work.
yeah.
Now, that's the bad news. Like the league is very, very aware of how to defend what they've got going on. Here's the good news. They have the cheat code for a wide choice system, which is an absolute athletic freak at the quarterback position.
Yep.
Everybody thinks wide choice is about throwing the ball down the field and throwing for 5,000 yards a year. And though it can lead to that, wide choice is about lightening the box to run the football.
Thank you.
And that is what it's all about. And that's what that dude is really, really good at. And it makes them good in the red zone. It kind of tilts the negatives about wide choice. Wide choice, when the field shrinks, historically, those teams are atrocious in the red zone because they can't balance the counts anymore. They can't use the field length as an advantage and the top end as an advantage. Therefore, the box gets crowded. Well, when my quarterback can run the football, we're back to even counts. We're back to balanced football. USF was top 5 in the country last year in red zone conversion rate because of this. Like they have a freak at quarterback, 6'3", 230 pounds. And he ain't one of these like, oh, he runs in a straight line fast. No, we got GPS metrics nowadays. This dude's in full pads running 23 miles an hour at 235 pounds.
Yeah.
He's scary. He one of them ones.
Yeah, I don't believe that that Auburn, that they need to be afraid of anything this year. Auburn doesn't need to be afraid of anything. They're playing with house money. They're on their third coach in 3 years. So there's no reason why they need to be afraid. there's nowhere to go but up. I mean, I guess you
Mhm.
could fall down lower in the SEC, but nobody's really talking about you. You got players transferring out. At least you have some hope now, and it feels like that the floor is that this is somebody who actually belongs at Auburn. That Alex Golesh
And
feels like a guy that can be happy there. That's not going to be peeking around, seeing what other jobs come open. He feels like a guy who's thankful. He's kind of giving me some. And granted, we do have to see the results, but he's giving me some Dan Lanning vibes in that he'll be content where he's at. That when something else comes open, that he ain't really gonna be entertaining it, and that they're not gonna have a circus year in and year out.
you mentioned something that I vehemently disagree with. Alex Golesh is happy. That dude doesn't look like he's ever happy to me. He looks like he's a lunatic. He looks like he's crazy. And I do correlate that to Dan Lanning, by the way. Your head coach is content where he's at because he knows if he does not win, he blames that on himself and he works himself into a fury to find the answer. I think Alex Golesh is the same way. In fact, I know he is by his own words. His opening press conference, he mentioned something along the lines of, I'm one of those football coaches that thinks I can go find the answer if I work hard enough for it. If I stare at the problem long enough, I'll find the answer. I believe that about him. I believe that this profession requires lunatics. I think he checks that box for me. Now, whether or not he will ultimately be a successful story, I don't know that. But you are right in the sense that they're playing with house money that, here's what I'll say. They don't have a football coach that's going to be golfing on Sundays during season. They don't have a football coach that is going to be, I hate to use this term because I don't know him personally, but I think Hugh Freeze to be a fraudulent football coach. From what I think about what it means to be a leader of men and to accept responsibility for the things that you are responsible for, I do not label him a very in the leader of men category. So they got an upgrade in that standpoint.
Yeah, and that is going to help with your discipline. That's going to help with your recruiting, being able to sell parents.
Consistency, just the whole projection growth of the football program.
Yep, and turning out responsible humans. Now, I'm gonna let you go on your Georgia Bulldogs. What is the Georgia Bulldogs' biggest fear deep down inside that they don't want to say out loud?
We missed on high school recruiting evals. Here's the problem. This isn't Georgia. This is every football program like Ohio State, like Alabama, like Texas until this last offseason. If you are a high school recruiting program, if you build your entire projection of your football program off of high school athletes, you better have hit. Because when they get to the level that they are now, like C.J. Wiley and Taylor, they are sophomores at the University of Georgia. They're very expensive because they're the highest tandem of wide receiver targets that they have signed since George Pickens and Dominic Blaylock. Well, when they signed George Pickens and Dominic Blaylock in 2019, it didn't cost what it costs now. These guys are getting paid like starters in the SEC, and if they're not as the caliber of production that Colby Young and Zachariah Branch were, then inevitably Georgia takes a step back at wide receiver, a step back that they can't afford. You see what I'm saying? So, Georgia couldn't go out and buy a fancy Zachariah Branch style weapon in the offseason this year because C.J. Wiley is expensive. Taylor is expensive. Well, C.J. Wiley and Taylor better be good. They better be really, really good this year when they play. Now, I'm not saying they won't be. I'm not saying but that's what I'm getting back to. The evals better be right. The evals better be right. Same thing up at Ohio State. When we lose Sonny Styles, when we lose Arvell Reese, well, it's, a rich man's game. They're just replacing them with 5-star blue chip prospects. But those guys haven't played. They have to be really, really good to match the level of production. Whereas some of these programs like Indiana, when they lose a Fernando Mendoza, they just go buy a Josh Hoover. We know Josh Hoover's good. We've seen him play in college football.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Way more picks than Fernando Mendoza did, though.
He wasn't RPOing a quarter of his damn snaps either. He was actually asked to play the position. So
that's true.
So Josh Hoover's going to have a breeze at Indiana, by the way. He's going to get asked to do things that he's like, I feel like I'm in a high school system again when I just left the Bryles system that's
a lot of decisions.
All kinds of, it's a lot of fulfilled reads. Like he's actually playing the position from the pocket, whereas I got to throw an RPO back shoulder fade. Okay. I'll rip this, man. I'm
easy
good.
work.
Okay.
All
You know
right.
what I mean? So, but yeah, and that's Georgia across the board. That's Georgia. Like Georgia's got to get better at corner. Ellis Robinson and DeMello Jones have to take a step. KJ Bolden has to be what he's ultimately supposed to be. Elijah Griffin's got to go from a really good freshman to an impact football player as a sophomore. Like the same thing. Juan Gaston's got to go from he was really good as a freshman to, oh my God, he might be the best tackle in the SEC, because that's what Monroe Freeling was. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of projection. It's a lot of guys got to get better. And that's okay because they're really talented football players. Again, it's first world problems. It's not like they're having to develop 3 stars. It's like, hey, can the 5-star be a 5-star? That's what they got to answer.
Yeah. I think Georgia's biggest fear is on offense with Mike Bobo. That last year they depended on Zachariah Branch so much. Like it was almost like watching Miami with Malachi Tony. That everything ran through him. It was screen. Anything was there. And then when you look at, he had double the catches of the next guy. So I think that the system being able to allow your quarterback Gunnar Stockton to actually play the position even more and keep himself out of harm's way, not quite run as much and pitch it around more. I think that's their biggest fear, is that they're not going to be able to do that, because I think that's going to be the difference between them being a very good football team and being an actual elite team that can compete for a championship.
Yeah, they have to get some growth from the quarterback position. No doubt. He has to become, he's a playmaker right now. He's got to become much better of a passer. All of his best plays are like, damn, dude, like you're extending plays. You almost died, but you got the ball off. Way to make a play. Well, I need to see some wow throws from the pocket. I think that will help the offense grow tremendously.
All right. Florida Gators. I believe, Brooks, the Florida Gators' biggest fear is that we didn't hire the right coach. That, like, I thought John Summerall was the perfect coach to go to LSU. I thought that just made so much sense. He's in Tulane. He understands the people. He understands the boot itself. I know he doesn't have the Lane Kiffin name, but this is a good football coach, a successful football coach. And sometimes geography matters. I believe he will be successful on some level, but it also, I believe that their fear is that they didn't get it right.
I think there's a weird, because I have grown up covering Georgia. When I say grow up, like my professional career has grown up through covering Georgia. So I'm very intimate and aware of the Florida fan base. I think something happened in the Florida fan base like 10 years ago where it became cool to be a pessimist, where it became cool to just like crap on everything that they do. So I think there is a large portion of that fan base that thinks they just hired Billy Napier 2.0. It's like, oh, this is a mid-major guy that's going to come over here and run it like that. And I think they're fearful of that. That's the natural inclination. At least when they hired him, that's what it was. I think he's a guy. I think he's a great football coach. He's very relatable. He's very personable. And he's a hard ass. I think that's having followed Kirby so closely over my career, that's his unique trait. His unique trait is he has this ability to be on go all the time, feel like a dictator, but everybody around him relate to him somehow. It's like a magic trick, honestly. I think Summerall might have some of that. I think he might have this high energy, high demands for his players, yet oddly relatable. I think that's the key. So I'm bullish on, but far more bullish on the offensive coordinator hires that he hired. Right, Buster Faulkner's a great football coach. Brad White, people don't know about Brad White. Brad White is a great football coach. The defensive coordinator that they hired from Kentucky, that guy has had top 15 defenses 3 times in the last 7 years at Kentucky. That's impressive. Yeah. So I think he did a good job from a coordinating standpoint. And like, dude, I like everything he says. His lip service for me is tremendous. Like, prime example, he was asked about hiring his buddies and like bringing. He's like, I don't hire buddies. I don't hire friends. That's not what I do. I hire colleagues. You come here, we're coming to work. You might be a friend of mine, but you not be right for this job. I love everything about him. We're gonna find out if it works though.
Yeah, and I loved what he did, keeping his promise to Tulane to donate money to their collective.
I'm saying, bro, there's nothing he's missed. He's hit all of them.
Yeah, that
All of them.
definitely. Yeah, that speaks to integrity, and integrity usually has good results. Now the Kentucky Wildcats, Brooks. What is their biggest fear of this season?
I don't think there is one. You talking about house money? This is house money. Like this is a football coach at Will Stein, who first year head football coach. I think maybe there's a little bit of a redemption arc for a coach like Joe Sloan, who got shit on way too hard at LSU, in my opinion. Like he took way too much of a brunt of a blow for a quarterback who couldn't throw the football and a head football coach who was busy golfing and riding jet skis. Like, get the hell out of here for that. So I guess the fear is that Kenny Minchie was in a really expensive football player who can't play, maybe. Like, didn't they pay a lot of money for him, like
Yes.
randomly out of nowhere? So
Yeah, because he was
maybe
supposed to
that.
go to Missouri. What was he supposed to go to Missouri first?
Yeah, he was. I think he was committed. So, anyways, but like, you got another Zach Calzada situation, maybe, where your backup quarterback sucks and his money spreading on timelines. Like, maybe that's the biggest fear. But other than that, I think you're playing with house money.
I think Will Stein does a good job identifying. Well, okay, does a good job of coaching quarterbacks because they did not necessarily recruit at the highest level at quarterback, even though they did recruit Dante Moore and got him to commit, but then he went to UCLA and then he came back. So he did a good job coaching Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, and Dante Moore. But the kids he recruited out of high school, it didn't really work out very well. So maybe he's a transfer portal identifier guy and maybe not the high school identifier guy. But
Did
for
he have time? Did he? I'm sorry to cut you off, George. Did he have time to like really establish high school recruiting relationships while he was at Oregon? Wasn't he only there for like 18, 24 months?
no. Well, yeah. So he was the offensive coordinator for Bo Nix's last year,
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Gabriel, and then this year. So yeah, so he was there for 3 years. The
Okay.
the the biggest thing that I would be afraid of if I were Kentucky is a little bit of recruiting, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you notice, when Tosh Lupoy left Oregon, 4 or 5 guys left Oregon and went to Cal. Nobody left Oregon and went to Kentucky. And that was because Will Stein is not the level of dogged recruiter the same way that Lanning and Tosh Lupoy are. And I believe that
I've
no, go on.
no, I was gonna say I've found that to be like really, really repetitive with regards to offensive minds and defensive minds. All of our great recruiters are defensive coaches. I know we're really
Mm,
sidetracking the conversation, but it's high energy. I need you to know that I care for you to run through a brick wall for me. You know, a lot more people running through brick walls on the defensive side of football than the offensive side of football. Offense is about making sure we're schematically tight, we're in the right area. Offensive minded football coaches spend far more time in the film room than defensive coaches. They're far more introverts, right? There are no Gus Malzahn defensive coordinators. They don't exist. They're all high energy
dang, that's
freaks,
fair.
like lunatics. So I think that's the thing I've stumbled upon, like just like, in my football life. Is like every high energy guy. If I flip the coin, it's going to land on defensive side of that coin more times than not.
Yeah, that and but the only position where you're super high energy usually is O line coach. Like
Yeah,
they're usually pretty fiery, but you are right.
or fat and
Outside
old.
of wide receiver coaches and sometimes running back coaches, like those are usually the
Mm-hmm.
two best recruiting guys on offense. Yeah, and
Yep.
whereas on defense, you might have all of them as really good recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair point. Now let's get on to the money bags out there, the $40 million roster, LSU Tigers. Brooks, what are they afraid of this season? Like deep down in that Bayou heart, they are projecting strength. They are defending every single thing that this man does. They are
Mm-hmm.
like, listen, of course he left Ole Miss. He would never leave us. He actually loves us. Even though he left Tennessee, left USC. Well, he got fired from USC, but like he ain't exactly he here for a good time, not a long time, no matter where he's at, despite whatever the situation is.
My biggest fear would be the number 57, which is the number of new football players they have on that roster. Now, this is what he does. He churns these things out every year. I mean, it's what he did at Ole Miss. I thought the whole reason to go to LSU is because we weren't going to have to do this. Year one, you have to do this, right? Just get all the new transfers, churn the roster out, guys that you think aren't good enough to play for you. Get them out of here, bring some new guys in. Hell, still an edge rusher from Tennessee if we can. Let's go get an offensive tackle from Colorado. Let's use this $40.5 million and let's go get after it. So they did all of that. I think the newness of it would scare me. But here's a thing that I want to ask you, George, because I brought it up on our show, and you're a good historian of the sport, so you can give me this. Has Lane Kiffin ever had expectations? Has Lane Kiffin, apart from the 18 months he spent at USC or however long he was there, has he ever had, you better win a national title while you're here, expectations? No. Or has it always been, hey, if you win 10 games, buddy, we're going to build a statue of you out of this place until you leave and we have to burn couches because you did it unprofessionally?
Yep. You outside of USC, the answer is no. That's it.
That was a long time ago, and we kind of crumbled under those expectations, to be honest with you.
Facts. So
I believe would scare me.
Yes, I believe that the biggest fear for LSU should be that you hired a very good football coach, because he's going to produce wins. Like he's got a system. He's been a head coach for a long time. He's smart. He understands things. My biggest concern would be is that he's a good football coach, that he's not an elite football coach in terms of the leadership component. He reminds me of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, supremely talented, got all the talented in the whole world. One of the most accurate passers of the ball that we've ever seen. He can make every single throw on the football field. The reason why Aaron Rodgers only has one Super Bowl is because Aaron Rodgers is not a good leader. And
he must be totally different than what we think him to be. And I only say that because if he were what we think him to be, if he were the persona and the person on a day-to-day basis that he projects himself to be publicly, there's no way in Sam Hell, Charlie Weiss Jr. would sign up for that to be second fiddle again. Do you know what I mean? Unless like on a personal, like man-to-man basis, he must just be a totally different human being. He must be far more likable, like when you actually are with him. Because otherwise, dude, why is Charlie Weiss not an NFL offensive coordinator right now? Why is Charlie Weiss not a hot candidate to be a head football coach? Because he just followed Lane again to LSU. That's crazy to me. That whole offensive stem did. The whole offensive coaching staff was like, okay, all right, let's go. Like that to me says that he must be different.
They are bad decision makers, and they don't know how to.
A whole lot of them. Some good football coaches in that bunch, man.
See, I think some of them were like, they might not have been in with Golding, and they thought that this was their best option, because they're like, okay, we'll go to LSU. Maybe I can get out of there in a year or two if we do have success. I think it's tricky with coaches especially when you're dangling so much money out in front of them. 2-year deal, 3-year deal. How much money does the head coach rock with you, or does he not rock with you? You're not sure about Golding, if he's going to keep you around past the one year, because we wasn't really that cool. So I think that some of that factors into it too. And especially when they didn't know whether Golding was going to get the head job or not, because he was interim. So I think some of them made choices because that was the best option at the time when it was presented.
No, that makes sense.
All right. Now, speaking of the Pete Goldings, you got Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
What do you believe, Brooks, that their biggest fear is this year?
The fraction 5 of 6. 5 of their top 6 receiving targets from a year ago are no longer on this roster. That would scare me. Obviously, everybody's going to talk about the coaching losses, right? Charlie Weiss Jr. gone. But, like, I don't know about you guys, but I think Joe Judge to be a really, really good football coach.
Yeah.
I know, hot take. And he got named the, head coach of the offense. I think it's the first title I've heard of that. And then Will Muschamp got named head coach of the defense out there in Texas. But they're going to let him run that offense. I would imagine the offense is going to look really, really good. I also believe that Kejuan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss are probably the 2 best individual talents in this conference. I think they're good enough to be a 10-win team by themselves. I think that highly of those two football players. So my biggest fear would be weaponry replacement.
Yeah, my biggest fear for them is that expectations have gotten out of whack. Is that last year's season that yes, you made it to the semifinals, but styles make fights. And I fear the same thing for Miami. Miami's like, see, look, we were the second best team in the country. Sort of, right? Because
Yeah,
you
but they
ended
got
up,
better.
yeah.
They got
You
better
think that Miami's going to be better?
offensively.
Yes,
I mean,
because
we're
they
gonna have to
upgraded
replace a lot of
quarterback.
we're gonna have to replace a lot of offensive line play, but like I think Miami's roster is in a really, really good spot. I don't think
Yes,
I can say that about Ole Miss's right now.
that's the other thing.
So
It is. I'm just saying that as far as Miami goes, and when Ole Miss, that yes, that last year was really good, but I just
mhm.
believe that they believe that they were a different caliber of team as opposed to
Yeah.
we played good at the right time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I think that
No, I
there's
feel
some
you.
factors there. All right. Now I want to go over to Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Sooners. That I believe their biggest fear, Brooks, for this year is that John Mateer, same offensive coordinator, that he didn't get better. That he's still going to be, you know, pushing balls up, sailing them, and inaccurate at times, and that this offense is still going to be a rock fight and a struggle bus, which is not going to get them anywhere where they want to be.
So we're moving into year 4 with John Mateer in this system. I think we spent 2 years under this system with Ben Arbuckle at Washington State, spent a third at Oklahoma. We're going into year 4. I don't expect exponential growth from the quarterback. You know, I just don't expect to see it. Also, we're way, way too mechanically inconsistent to ever
Yep.
expect consistent growth from that football player, from my standpoint. I'm looking at my phone because I'm looking at these transfer portal additions, and I just want to clear this up and make sure I'm 100% right here before I give this take. All right, I'm gonna give this take. For the second straight year, I didn't feel like they got good enough. Like they didn't do anything to get better at problem areas. They're taking bodies at wide receiver, but they didn't
Yeah.
take a difference maker at wide receiver. They took a
And they
bunch of
need
bodies.
some. They need a
They need,
difference maker.
dude. They needed a dude. Like they needed Cam Coleman is what they needed. They needed to go spend money to go get a guy. And I don't think they have one. If I look at their roster right now, like Georgia, we were talking about them earlier. Their whole offensive line bet is that Michael Fasusi and Eddie Pierre-Louis turn into what they think they're supposed to be. Those were two freshmen playing freshman football last year, and they look like freshmen. They look like talented freshmen,
Yeah.
but that's what they're banking on right there. Like, hey, what did we do at running back? Did we get better there? I know y'all had a talented freshman, but we swung and missed on Jay Knott last offseason. So there are certain things that I look at them and I'm like, ooh. Now, that being said, like, David Stone might be one of the best defensive tackles in college football next year. They're going to be great defensively. All they
Oh,
need is an
because that's
offensive
what he
pulse.
does.
All they need is an offensive pulse. If they can just find a consistent heartbeat offensively, they'll be a tough team to beat.
Agreed. Mississippi State. Let's head down to Starkville.
Be quick. Be quick. I don't mean to be
Yeah.
disrespectful to the Bulldogs, but let's be quick. The biggest fear is that Kamario Taylor is not what we think he is.
Yeah. I just don't.
Spent a lot of money on that one.
Yeah. I just believe that this is going to be, you know, like the wide offense. It's a gimmick, and hopefully it works some. They've improved, but I don't believe that there's anything to be afraid of for them. There's that you are who you are right now. Anything above 6 wins is a win for you.
I mean, they went from a football team that lost every single conference football game in 2024 by an average of 17 points to taking Texas to overtime last year. So there's some uptick.
Yeah.
I think we took Tennessee to overtime too. So there's some uptick there, some positivity, but we'll see what it looks like. Again, this is the most talented football player they've had at quarterback ever. Like, I know people are going to be like, oh, they had Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was not a 5-star football player like
Correct.
Kamario Taylor.
Yep.
This kid is supposed to be something. So we'll see.
Yep. All right. Missouri. Eli Drinkwitz's Missouri Tigers. What is their biggest fear, Brooks?
Um, man, I'm so down on Mizzou.
Me too.
I'm so down on Mizzou. That would be my fear. I don't know. If I were a Missouri Tiger fan, I'd look at that roster and be like, "Holy hell, we're not near as good as we were the last 2 or 3 years." Apart from Ahmad Hardy, do they have a preseason All SEC football player?
Probably not. I just
On the 3 teams, they won't. So like
I
it's
don't
it's it's bare
believe
it's bare out there.
I don't believe in Eli Drinkwitz. Like he just doesn't jump off the screen. And I know that you can judge a book by its cover, and that's not fair. But he just doesn't jump off the screen to me when in interviews. I don't feel inspired. I don't feel anything. I just okay. Like I feel like this is going to be a 8-4 football team, and
you're a little more positive. I'm like, can we scrap the 7-5? Like, I'm telling you, man. Like, dude, the Austin Simmons thing, I don't think that's going to work. Like, the Matt Zollers looked okay last year, but he's got no help. Another thing. Name me a wide receiver at Missouri right now,
when he got in at Ole Miss last year.
No, he was a turnover prone, and the motion is real dippy. It is real long. So there's a lot there that I'm not really bullish on. Again, it's not great up there right now, I don't think.
South Carolina. Brooke, South Carolina's biggest fear is that Shane Beamer and LaNorris Sellers are way more hype than actual substance. Because there were people like, look, LaNorris Sellers should come out in the draft. And I was like, for what? For what? This is Anthony Richardson 2.0. And until he can, he holds the ball way too long. He doesn't believe in what he's seeing. Yes, they needed a whole new offensive coordinator. So for me, he needs to take a massive jump, or he better hop in the transfer portal and get to a different school, because I do not believe in what is going on there. Shane Beamer is too nervous on the sideline. He's always pacing, and I'm like, bro, you look like something is you're scaring me.
Yeah,
and I just don't buy it. I do not buy it.
I think for the 19th straight year, their fear is offensive line play, despite the fact that I could go for a joke here. Let's restart. South Carolina fans' biggest fear is 3-on-3 basketball. You don't get that joke. Jacarius Peak, their multi-million-dollar offensive tackle, is not going to be available for spring because he sprained his knee playing 3-on-3 basketball at a team event. That's real. That's real talk. That actually happened. Their other tackle, Josiah Thompson, will not be available until fall camp. I don't know why. He's not available. It's a knee thing too. So they're high-end blue-chip tackles that they're betting on their whole entire protection of LaNorris Sellers on. They ain't practicing until August. So there's that. But no, this is his fourth coordinator. You talk about LaNorris, like he's uber talented. This is a fourth coordinator. We've gone through a bunch of them. And last year, here's a little, not to take a shot at Mike Shula, but here's a little something for you, head football coaches out there. Probably shouldn't hire an offensive coordinator who hasn't called plays since 2016. Probably shouldn't hire an offensive coordinator who's never called plays in college football. Probably shouldn't hire an offensive coordinator whose best claim to fame is, I did that one thing with Cam Newton that one time. Son, that was 2013. That was 2013. So we have Kendall Briles in the mix now. He'll make it a whole lot more simple, yes, I would imagine, for, Kendall did some really, really complex things with Josh Hoover the last couple of years at TCU because Josh Hoover could handle that. Kendall wasn't doing that with KJ Jefferson at Arkansas. KJ Jefferson and Arkansas offense will look a lot like South Carolina offense this year, I would imagine.
All right. Next team, the Tennessee Volunteers. Brooks, I believe the Tennessee Volunteers should have no fears for this year because I believe that they are who they are with their head coach, Josh Heupel. What he requested, he wants a 24-team playoff because he is a 24-team playoff type of guy. That's where this program is. This is not a top 10 type of program anymore, that they may be able to slide into the college football playoff in one of those last spots every now and then. But he wants 24 teams because he understands where he's at right now. So there's no reason to be afraid, Tennessee, because he knows who you are, you know who you are, and you just got to be able to peak every now and then.
So you mentioned that time period where Tennessee was a top 10 football program. People, and I think Volunteer fans even forget this. That was when Alabama and Georgia sucked. It's really, really good to be a top 10 football program in the SEC when Alabama and Georgia suck. They don't anymore. They never will ever again. They will never be really, really bad ever again. So Tennessee was great in those time periods because they could come into Alabama and they could take football players. They could come into Georgia, they could take the top end football players. They can't do that anymore. But I'm a Josh Heupel guy. I'm a believer in what he does. I'm a believer in his football acumen. I'm a believer in the adjustments that he makes. Here's my main concern. Here's what I'm terrified about. There have been a lot more tight football games, and this dude is terrible in 2 minutes. This dude is terrible in timeout management. This dude is terrible in clock management. This dude is terrible in game management. And that stuff scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, but you believe in this year, you are a Josh Heupel guy.
Do. I am. Hey, we all have our faults. I mean,
that's Mario Cristobal too. And
if I have to buy a wide choice football coach, I'm buying Heupel. I ain't buying the rest of you guys yet. Yeah. I'm gonna buy him. But no, I mean all those things are a byproduct of his system too. Like you're terrible in 2 minutes because you just. I don't know why. I can't get. You're terrible in the red zone because you can't run the ball in the red zone because you're a wide choice offense. So like some of his stuff makes sense, but no, I'm worried about whether or not George McIntyre is a turnover frenzy and whether or not Faison Brandon's elite. I think Faison Brandon is going to be really, really good.
Just not as a true freshman.
No, and there's not many of those that are, but. I think they had a fortuitous loss in the court systems, to be honest with you. I think the worst thing that could have happened for them is to be an 8-4 Joey Aguilar-led football team this year, and we go another year without knowing whether or not George McIntyre is what we thought he was coming out of high school. Like not to get too deep on Tennessee, and we go way too long on these things, by the way. That's me and you. That's us. Yeah. That's what it's going to be. It's what it's going to be. They identify quarterbacks way earlier than everybody else on the high school trail. They had George McIntyre committed going into his junior summer. They had Faison Brandon committed going into his junior summer. Why aren't y'all playing those guys? Why aren't y'all rushing to play those guys? You committed to them early. Let's find out if they're good. That'd be I'm a hopeful if I'm a Tennessee fan that George McIntyre is a guy. And we're going to find out. If we're 7-5 this year, I don't give a shit if he's good because I know next year we have a window.
That's fair. All right, Texas A&M. Brooks, what are the Aggies' biggest fear going into this 2026 season?
In-house promotion. It never works. It normally doesn't. When we lose a good offensive coordinator, and say what you want about Colin Klein, he's a good offensive coordinator. When we lose him to a head coaching job and we promote in-house, it normally doesn't work out tremendously. Now, Oregon's going through this. They just promoted in-house. I think offense and defensive coordinator. Normally we have to go out.
Hampton.
Yeah, normally we have to go out and hire somebody. That's my history of this conference in particular. Like, for example, Georgia lost I think Jim Chaney after the 2017 year, and they're like, or 2018 year, and they're like, well, we got James Coley in-house. We'll just promote him. It didn't work out too good. Promotional, like last year, I know I defended Joe Sloan, but letting Denbrock walk out of LSU to go to Notre Dame and then just promoting Joe Sloan didn't work out at LSU. So promoting the wide receivers coach to offensive coordinator always scares me. That would be my biggest fear, that we're not good enough offensively because we lost a ton defensively. They're going to have to score more points at A&M this year. They're not going to be as good defensively, and they had weird outlier performances defensively last year where it's like, why are you giving up 41 points on the road to Notre Dame? What is going on? What are we doing?
Exactly. I believe that Texas A&M's biggest fear this year, it's clear, is that last year's schedule and having to only play one team in the SEC that finished in the top 8, that this has distorted the view. That you thought that there were people on the, oh my God, let's look at all the metrics. And you got the TV announcers. The metrics say that Texas A&M is the best team. I was like, what metrics are you talking about? You got the number one defense in Columbus. You got the number one offense somewhere else. And you're telling me that Texas A&M's the best team? I'm looking at the schedule. I'm like, where are the ranked team? Where are the good teams that you beat outside of Notre Dame?
I feel really bad for the sorry sack that draws a short stick in them ESPN meeting rooms, pre-show planning rooms. They're like, hey, Booger, you got to argue for A&M today. And he's like, damn it. All right, lose an argument. Let's go try to throw something at the wall, hope it sticks. That's how that happens, by the way. That's how that happens. We got some pre-show planning meeting where everybody's like, hey, who's the number one team? And I was like, Ohio State. And they're like, okay, well, that's boring-ass television. You have to pick this team. And that's how that goes. So,
like, all right, somebody give me somebody else besides these three teams.
Yeah, exactly.
I can take Texas
Somebody
A&M.
go viral.
I can make a case. Lies. The Texas Longhorns. Brooks, I look at this team and I believe that their biggest fear this year in Texas, deep down in their soul, that they're like, what if Arch is just okay? What if he's just a good quarterback? Because last year, Paul Feinbaum and everybody else, except this guy right here, was, oh my, Arch Manning's the best. He's going to win the Heisman. He should come out. He'd be the best number one pick of all time. And I was like, are we sure about that? Because like he started 3 games and 2 of them were okay. And one of them was not good. And they were like, no, but believe it. And now this year, same thing. Arch Manning, believe it. And I'm like, what if he's just really good or just pretty good? And Sark is just a very good coach, and maybe he needs to give up offensive play calling because we've never had a play caller win a national championship.
All relatively valid, except I will say this. I was called some crackpot conspiracy theorist last year for pointing out that Arch Manning might be hurt. Come to find out, he played the entire year with some type of ligament issue in his foot. He had off-season foot surgery. Apparently got hurt in 2024 against Texas A&M, their last regular season game. For some reason, thought it was going to be fine. Went through the offseason last year. This is all reported by Cooper Manning, by the way. Went through the offseason, thought it was going to be okay, went through rehab process. It never got any better. He dealt with it all year last year. And based off what I looked at, it had to be his right foot. I mean, every single time he's driving, he's collapsing onto his left side and just absolutely, his mechanics were dog crap last year. I think that's a lot why the performance was up and down. I love his competitive integrity. I think he's tough as nails. I compared it this way. It would be like watching the nepotistic hire at a construction company be the hardest grunt worker. That's what it's like watching him play football because, I mean, they were killing him last year. They were absolutely unable to protect him at all. My biggest concern looking at Texas's roster is general depth. They have great top-end talent.
Yes.
And then you look at those starters and you're like, my God. But if they have 2 or 3 injuries, you look at their 2 and 3 depths, those are a bunch of talented high school football players who've never played ball, never played big-time college football. So there is a big gap and drop-off between – I'm not talking about talent. I'm talking about just general experience and being ready to play. That would be my main concern because they spend a lot of money on bringing guys in, and they're great. They're great football players at that top end of that roster. But we need 2s and 3s to go play 17 games.
Yes, you do. The final SEC team, the Vanderbilt Commodores. Brooks, I look at this team, and to me, deep down in Vanderbilt's soul, their fear has to be that last year was as good as it gets. That I believe that Clark Lee's a good football coach, that he inspires confidence in everybody. He wants to be there. He wants to prove he can win at Vanderbilt. They're going to probably be starting a true freshman at quarterback in Jared Curtis, who flipped from Georgia. But I believe that deep down that they're scared that last year was that was the pinnacle.
So you said probably, and it reminded me of that scene in The Waterboy where they ask his girlfriend what the score prediction is going to be, and he goes, "Man, that's a pretty good guess." And she looks at him and goes, "That ain't no guess. That's what it's gonna be. Ain't no probably with Jared Curtis. It's what it's gonna be. They paid the man $3 million. It's what it's gonna be. Okay. I'm assuming $3 million.
It had to be somewhere around it. Yeah.
North of 2.5. And I guaranteed that. I bet they guaranteed that dude first year playing time, because that was the whole flip up. They made that man out to be like he was going to be the apostle of Nashville football. So the whole regime is based off Curtis. I think he's that talented. I think he's that good. I think the difference is like the offensive scheme that they ran at Vanderbilt with Pavia was able to tilt the talent disadvantage, right? The option offense, the ability to flip guards, the run game dominance, the ability to live in 3rd and 2s. Jared Curtis ain't about to take 14 carries in an option offense. Like, what are we talking about? That's not what that's going to look like. So he's going to need more parts around him, I think, than they needed last year, despite the fact that he's far more talented than Diego Pavia. His style of play requires actual talents around him. You got to be able to protect a quarterback who could throw from the pocket. You got to be able to have weapons for quarterbacks who need to throw the football. You see what I'm saying? Like that would be my main concern there. Is our style of play does not lead for, oh, we've got good talent, we don't have great talent. No, we need some great players with a great quarterback too.
100%. And you guys, that is the SEC. Everybody's biggest fears. Go down in the comments. Tell us what you think, and who does have the biggest fear, the worst fear. Brooks, thanks for coming on, man.
No doubt, George.
Go to Unafraid Show for more content like this and Underdog Fantasy. Use the code UNAFRAID for $75 back on your first $5 deposit.